Welcome to Harper Fox Trailblazer Talks. Today we are discussing how to promote STEM careers to the younger generations and are joined by Jensen, Assistant Principal of the Outstanding Technical College Ron Dearing UTC. Welcome, Glenn.
Thank you very much for having me, Scarlett.
Oh, thank you for coming. We're delighted that you're here. So, tell us about your journey and how did you come to work at Ron Dearing UTC?
Well, when I left school at 16, I started out on a motor vehicle apprenticeship and I was a motor vehicle mechanic for many years. And then I kind of switched jobs, so that was kind of engineering based, and I switched jobs to become a bar manager just because I wanted something different, and I think that was quite good because it enabled me to have that people's management, the leadership skills that I didn't have as a mechanic, and from there I started part-time teaching, and I think as a young person in an apprenticeship, I always saw my assessor from the FE college coming in, and I always thought, oh, well, I wouldn't mind that job, and then ever since starting as a part-time teacher, I slowly worked my way up, and now I work at the Outstanding Ron Dearing UTC in Hull, and I'm the Assistant Principal for Employer Engagement. Yeah,
which is amazing, and it is the most incredible academy. I just want to kind of backtrack a little bit there. So you yourself did an apprenticeship.
Yes.
Then you went to go and be a bar manager, which is completely different kind of kettle of fish. And then you decided to go into teaching. Yeah. And was it kind of in that apprenticeship, employer-led space that was interesting for you then, rather than sort of conventional classroom teaching?
Yeah, definitely. I think it was a bit of both. I think because of my experience as an apprentice and seeing it from the apprentice's point of view,
yeah,
I could kind of relate to a lot of the students that were currently on apprenticeships at that point. So my teaching in the classroom would very much then mimic what industry would be expecting. And I think that kind of grew me into the position that I'm in today, where it's all about contextualising what we do in the classroom so that it relates to a relevant skill within industry.
Yeah, okay, amazing. What would you say have been your biggest achievements since being at Ron Dearing UTC?
For me, I would probably say the thing that I'm most proud of is where our students end up.
Yeah.
Because I think for me, it proves what my idea was when I started there, which was all project-based learning. The idea of the UTC was very much founded by our major partners who made a change and saw that there needed to be a change in the way that education was done around technical subjects. And when I came on board at the very start, it was very much to look at how do we contextualise that learning, how do we make sure that what's done in that classroom is what that employer wants.
Yes.
And not just specific skills, but those employability skills, those transferable skills that can go across different sectors, different industries. And it was quite a risk because it was a different way of learning and a different way of doing things, and luckily my bosses took that risk on employing me and been able to see that. And to see where our students are ending up now, that is my proudest moment, to know that we have these young people going into industry and the employers are coming back and saying, yes, this works, what you're doing works. So that to me is probably what makes me the most proud out of everything.
Absolutely, and it sounds like you were obviously really bought into the vision. You'd kind of lived it yourself already, and then you've been able to kind of see that through really with some of the students already.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of my background in terms of the apprenticeship and the skills that I learnt within industry, and that can be everything. The personal skills, how you interact with people, how you greet people. All that professional side of it as well is so key to what we do at Ron Dearing. And for me to see that in our young people now, and for them to be successful, some of the apprenticeships they go for have 4,000 plus applicants from all over the country, and this young woman or young man from Hull is having that opportunity, and I think that's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, so do I. And it's interesting. I've done some talks at various schools, kind of just promoting the STEM sector and so forth. And probably the biggest question that I have had from students is, should I go to university or should I do an apprenticeship?
Yeah, it's
the biggest question, and it is really difficult, and I can see the pros and cons of both, no doubt about it, but I do think there's something to be said to be able to go into industry with some experience under your belt. That's kind of my personal viewpoint.
I couldn't agree more, and I think that the introduction of degree apprenticeships and how employers are starting, and they only are really just starting to see their worth, and from a student's perspective, going to university for some students is what they need, and that is definitely the correct route for those, and that's absolutely brilliant. But some students need to be in industry, they need to be learning that specific skill set, and almost for the employers to grow their own employees in that environment. And the degree apprenticeship is fantastic because it means for a student that there is no debt. They are earning while they're learning, which is absolutely fantastic. And for the companies, you've got somebody who's got the relevant skills for you. And transferable skills are fantastic, and they do work across a breadth of different sectors, but a lot of the companies that we work with do have a specific skill set, and that's the bit that you get from an apprenticeship. That's the point of why it's really important that you earn while you learn in that kind of respect.
Yeah, I love that. It's incredible. Yeah, incredible. Exciting, actually.
Yeah,
especially
really
when you,
is.
so when you hear, you earn while you learn, you're in the industry, you really get a good feel for it as well. They're going to know, those students are going to know very quickly, actually, is this the career that I imagined? Is this the environment that I thought it was going to be? Earlier on, then maybe if it's a different route.
And it's such a difficult thing at the age of 16 or 18 to think about what is your life going to plan out like, where is your career going to take you? And I think that the way that we've modelled our education around looking at making sure that students have an insight into what those career paths look like within those industries enables them to make a more informed decision, things like summer schools and work experience, which is brilliant, and they get an idea of what they want to do, and they can take what they've enjoyed and hopefully have a really successful career in that field.
So within STEM, it's widely reported that there is a skills gap. Why do you think that is?
I think traditionally, when you look at secondary school, the breadth of the options that students can take in some secondary school is maybe a little bit too wide and far-reaching. And the beauty of a UTC is the fact that our options curriculum is very narrow. And it's narrow because it's focusing on a certain sector or sector's skill sets. And I think that's really important. And I think that a lot of work has to be done in primary schools. I think a lot of, certainly with young women in primary schools, to be able to show that, to get rid of stereotypes and to show that these are viable career paths for anybody, no matter what. I think that's really important. And then to really promote the sector, the types of jobs that there are within engineering and, digital and creative sectors is fantastic. There's a lot of money to be earned and a lot of really jobs that kind of need the passion and innovation and imagination of the young people of today, and I think that in itself should be the biggest driver that we need to get more people interested in STEM and more places that do have that focus on those specific areas.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think it is awareness. I think some of these things are a little bit unconscious, when we talk about the gender side of things, and the other element is awareness. And if you don't know that actually those kind of careers exist and for a living I can do X, Y and Z, then it's not something you're going to target yourself towards, or won't be a goal that you kind of set to achieve.
Exactly, and a lot of these engineering companies or digital companies, there are so many different career paths within there.
Yeah,
it doesn't
absolutely.
just have to be ring-fenced around engineering, and it's opening that up to students, it's opening that up to the young people and saying, well, if you've got an interest in digital health, for instance, you don't have to go down the doctor or the medical route. It can be data crunching, and you can be looking at changing people's lives in a different way, but still within that sector. And I think that's really important, and it's kind of advertising what that looks like to people, and that the skill shortage that we are going to face in things such as automation, in STEM sectors, it's about getting that out there and doing something about it now, being proactive instead of being reactive, and making sure that we can fulfil those jobs for the future.
Yeah, okay. I was going to say absolutely again. I might have to think of another word, but absolutely. Yeah. I'm in complete agreement. So, how can businesses promote the STEM sector and the more technical sectors to younger generations?
I think primarily working with the educational sector.
Yes.
Speaking to people like myself about what is that synergy between education and the skills that industry is requiring. I know myself that I have to be very adaptive to meet the needs of our various employers, in our region, and it's that adaptability that I think is absolutely key to everything that we do in education. It's being able to be at the forefront of what is needed next. Where are we now? What are we going to be like in 5 years' time? And what do we need to do for that? And unfortunately, parts of the education system are very rigid, and they've been the same for years and years and years and years. And there needs to be that adaptability. There needs to be that conversation between education and industry, to be able to link up and to better promote the jobs and the skills that are required, for the future talent pipeline.
And would you say that's happening? Or is it the likes of academies like yours that are kind of enabling that to happen?
Yeah, I think in some respects it is. I think a lot of universities have fantastic partnerships with employers, but that's at an HE level, and not every student's going to go into higher education. So the UTC front is a fantastic opportunity for employers to get involved at 14 to 18 education and to really stamp their mark on what they want their skills to look like for the future. But there's no reason why it can't happen in an education reform across the country. Actually looking at secondary schools and saying, right, well, these things are very important. However, how many jobs are there actually out there at the end of the year for those students? Does that qualification relate to a job? Or is it more of a knowledge that you need of it, a knowledge that's going to help you develop yourself as a person? And I think that's kind of what needs to be looked at. And I think that, the more industry comes in and talks to education, and it has to be together, on both sides.
Yeah, hand in hand.
The more skills and the more opportunities will arise for the young people of the future.
Yeah, incredible. And you don't, I guess we're so much kind of on the employer side, absolutely. And then it is about, what really kind of resonated with me there is when you said, well, actually, it's about those employers shaping the skill set for those future students. And that was kind of a bit of a light bulb moment for me. I was like, gosh, yeah, of course. So what skill set do we need in 10 years' time or in 20 years' time? And actually, how do we shape that right here and right now? So it's an amazing opportunity, really, for everybody as well.
Yeah, definitely. And that's, you've got to, what we always look at it is if I'm sending a student to a job, what is going to give them the edge? What is going to make them stand out above everybody else that employer will say, wow, that's amazing.
Want them.
You're the one. And that's what we want to give all of our students. And by working with our employers really closely on projects, we can give those students an insight to what that job would look like in industry, what types of skills, what kind of briefs they would have to work to, their communication with employers. And that's what's key, that's what's important, because that's what sells at an interview, is that knowledge and that ability to be able to show that the skills are relevant to that employer. And that's what we want, it's about that end product for the student, and so that employers get a more efficient, well-rounded employee at the end of the day.
Absolutely, yeah. I think this is probably quite a kind of a key one, actually. So what can employers do to inspire students, or your students, for example, to apply for an apprenticeship with them, to make them the most desirable of their competitors?
Get involved. That's all I would say. Just literally come on board with your local, UTC or secondary school. And really have a voice in what their curriculum looks like in terms of the skill sector that you're looking for, because without that employer input, education will just do what it's always done, and it will stay stagnant to a certain extent. And like I said before, it's about that adaptability. It's about that ability to be able to change something to make it more relevant to what industry requires. And technology moves so quickly these days, and the ability to change and adapt has been really prevalent throughout the COVID pandemic, with a lot of companies having to go online or having to think about their business strategy. And that's what we want to inspire within our students, is the fact that don't stand still, don't get that caught short, be adaptable, do what's going to get you where you need to be. And I think that's the important part for employers wanting to get involved. If they want to see a change, they are going to have to get involved and have an input.
Yeah, and I love that, actually. And sort of the key word that we're hearing at the moment is agility.
Yeah.
Agility seems like the key word. A lot of our clients are asking us, well, can we test that candidate's learning agility? They need to think about our culture and how will they be able to adapt to our culture. And then on a side note, we're also hearing, as a lot of clients are preparing for people to come back to offices and also have this kind of home working, remote working, flexi working relationship. Oh, we haven't got the tech. We need to, what does the tech need to look like? Okay, we need to somehow make this viable now for virtual meetings, but people being in the office at the same time, and how do we do that? So there's all those kind of conversations are happening. So you're right, I think it is someone that's kind of at the forefront and that's really in the midst of those conversations at every level. So what are the main areas that students need to focus on to be that standout student that you talked about to secure that apprenticeship?
I think that depending what you're studying, and I guess that's kind of like, what sector do you enjoy? And I think that's got to be the forefront of it, is it has to be something that is enjoyable, a passion, something that you're going to be able to put yourself into, you know, using your imagination and innovation to make a change, really. And I think that that's probably the most important thing. So to students, what I would say is really think about what you want to do, what interests you, what are your key drives in terms of, you know, where you want to be in the next 5 years. And then to push yourself, to challenge yourself to meet your targets. Don't just relax and think, oh, this will be all right for a bit. You know, and I think that's something that resonates with me. When I was at school, I didn't really challenge myself. I wasn't really competitive until I think a maths teacher told me I wasn't going to get any higher than a C on my GCSE.
Okay.
And then that flicked the switch. And ever since that point, I have been very competitive, and I've wanted to challenge myself to better myself as much as I possibly can. I don't know if it was a stroke of genius by the maths teacher trying to get me to get the B, which I got in the end.
Pardon?
Or it was just somebody's opinion that I wasn't good enough, and that resonated with me. And I thought, no, actually, that's it now. I've got the drive, and I think that's it. It's if you've got the drive to do something that you're passionate about, you will excel. And I think that's what I would say to students. Don't just go for a job because it's there. Go for a job because you can make a difference in that job.
Yeah, you can actually bring real value.
Exactly.
Value to an organisation, yeah. And you hear that, don't you? You often hear kind of that sort of pivotal point in somebody's life, especially as a young person, is generally when somebody has told them maybe that they're not good at something, or they're not going to do well in an area. And of course it can be defeating for some people, but also it seems to spur a lot of people on as well, and they're like, that teacher told me I was never going to amount to nothing. You know, we've all heard that, haven't we? And then they're like, but look at me now, you know, that kind of. So, bit of a side point, but would you say in terms of style, I've got 2 daughters and I always try and be super supportive, super encouraging. Do we need to kind of challenge them in the right way?
Yeah, well, I think the supporting side is absolutely key, because people have to follow what they want to do, and if you take them off that path and they're driven towards that, you know, you're not going to be able to steer them off, or all you'll get is, you know, like resistance to it. But I do think we do have to challenge, and I think challenge is good because challenge promotes change, it promotes discussion, and I think that challenging in a supportive manner is different to telling somebody you will never do this or you cannot do that. You know, and it's more of, do you know what, you've got this in you. If you put the work and the effort in, you can achieve this. It is not beyond you. That there is a push, it's a challenge, it's a mountain to climb. And I think that in itself holds more power than any, you know, negative kind of comment can do to anyone's career path.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I totally agree. So what would you say personally has been the biggest lesson that you've learned, and what would be your advice to future generations?
Personally, not to give up.
Okay.
Yeah, again, it's that challenge, it's that push, it's what's important to me and how do I achieve those things. And for me to be where I am today is through pure drive that I have to make a change, and I think that's, for me, is probably the biggest thing that I've learnt about myself, is that I do want to make things better, I do want to improve things, and I can be quite stubborn until I get the outcome that I want.
Yes, I can relate to that, by the way.
And, you know, I've probably seen that in myself a little bit more as I've like climbed the leadership ladder, that if I have an idea, and I will listen to my team, and if they're not telling me it's wrong, then I will drive that idea straight through until we make it work, you know. And I think as part of that, for me, listening is really important. Getting feedback, using that feedback as, you know, constructive feedback, and then building on myself to be better at what I do, you know, which then hopefully will relate into better outcomes for our students.
Yeah, it's kind of that's a really continuous improvement, going
Definitely.
back to industry, isn't it?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And where do you think, on a personal note, where do you think that comes from? Like, what's the motivation behind that? Do you think it's a character trait, or do you think it's...
I believe it probably is now. Yeah, I think that I will strive to be the best. And I may not achieve that, but as long as I'm still climbing towards it, I know that things will be improved within the things that I do. And I think that, to me, that's what I enjoy, you know, and that's not just in in work. You know, I'm a very keen cyclist.
Okay.
And I will push myself to beat my times every single time I'm on a bike, because it's about that, as you said, continuous improvement.
Yes.
You know, and it will only lead to better things. Yes. And that's the way I see it.
Yeah, I agree. And it's much like the advice that you give to your students. You know, where can you add the most value and how can you add the most value?
Yeah.
And that's it. You're literally kind of practicing what you're preaching, it sounds like.
Definitely. And if I can instill that into our students, that's a fantastic trait to take into employment.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, for sure. You've obviously been incredibly successful and you're really passionate about what you do, but I would assume there's maybe been some sacrifices along the way that you've had to make.
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably say in terms of sacrifice, in the early years of my teaching career, when I was studying part-time at university, that was probably the biggest sacrifice in terms for me, because I'd had a newborn baby that was there and we just moved house and things like that. And I think that probably took me away a little bit, but for me it was a short-term loss for a long-term gain, and I think that's the way that I look at it. So probably sacrifice isn't the word that I would use. I would more look that gave me the ability to improve myself and to give myself and my family better opportunities in the long run, you know, and I'm in a position now where I'd like to say I've a healthy life-work balance, you know, and that's something that we try and impart on our students at Ron Dearing too, is the fact that, you know, like your mental health is intrinsic within your career path, and you know how important that is. So yeah, I'd probably say just time to study all the how to be a teacher stuff, you know, was probably the biggest commitment and sacrifice I'd say that I had had.
Okay. So just listening to everything you've said, and I'm wondering actually if you've got any advice for anybody maybe that's in the industry that would be interested in going into teaching or kind of into more of the academic side of things.
Yep, go do it.
Yeah?
Honestly, yeah, definitely. I mean, don't get me wrong, it is hard work and there are challenges, but it is immensely rewarding and you will have a real impact. And I think that's what needs to happen. You know, like I was saying about employees being more involved in the education sector, but it needs to have relevant industry specialists in the classroom, you know, and that's something that we're very fortunate to have. Because I don't know everything as an engineering teacher and I am not an expert at everything. So to be able to pull on that expertise, to really give context to what you're doing in the classroom is fantastic. And it only makes for better learning. So.
That's what I was thinking, because what you can bring to the table is somebody that's actually worked in industry.
Exactly.
And that's not always the case, I would imagine. You know, so it's a different kind of experience, isn't it? You really are relaying, this is what it's like in industry. This is kind of, you know, the pros, the cons, the strengths, the weaknesses. This is what you need to be prepared for.
And it really gives them a really good insight into what their future career path might be. And again, it's about that, making sure they're making the right decision for them, you know, as an individual. And I think that is really important. And being able to have that kind of experience from a professional, it's you know, worth more than any textbook. It's absolutely priceless. So I would say that, you know, if you want to see what it's like, go to a talk, get involved with your local school, and then if you're passionate about passing on your skills to the future generations, then go for it.
Love it, love it. Thank you, Glenn. There's so many insightful kind of pieces of information that you've relayed there, and actually it's given me certainly a different viewpoint, kind of looking at it from the education space rather than just an employability sort of avenue. So yeah, that's been really insightful. Thank you very much.
Cheers, thank you.
Glenn, thank you for a really insightful interview, really inspiring, really informative, and some brilliant tips in there. So thank you so much.
No problem, thank you.
Thank you. So now we're going to go into our lightning round. Are you ready?
I am.
What do you like to do for fun?
I enjoy football. I love cycling, road cycling, and Formula One. Really, that's pretty much and it'll be like spending time with family and whatnot. But yeah, I'd probably say they're my kind of hobbies, if you'd call it.
Key things. So we have to watch out for you on the circuits then.
Well, I'm not that quick, but yeah.
What does equality mean to you?
Equality means to me is it's for me it's about what the person brings. It's not about skin colour, gender, who you love, who you pray to. It is about, are you right for that job?
Yeah.
Are you the right person for that job? And that's what equality means to me. It's about giving people a chance to prove themselves before you make any assumptions about who they are. I think that's probably what it rings true
that's
to me.
nice. That's very human, actually, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay, good. And what advice would you give your younger self?
Don't doubt yourself. Yes. Just keep going. Yeah, I'd probably say that. Stop spending loads of money, stuff like that, but yeah.
On things that aren't important.
Exactly. You don't need those jeans. Even. But yeah, definitely to keep pushing and strive for what you want to get out of life.
Brilliant. And who inspires you?
I'd probably say my late granddad.
Okay.
Yeah, as opposed to anyone famous or anything like that. Just because he was a problem solver, he could fix anything. He was a fantastic musician, and I have a real love for music. I can't play anything, but it can change my mood. It can level me out. Just a good song. And but he kind of instilled in me the kind of problem-solving nature that I've got, where I'll have a go at anything. That's not my skill set, but I'll give it a try, and I'll try my best to produce something. And I think I get that from him. So yeah, I'd probably say my late granddad.
Yeah, that's a really nice one, really inspirational as well.
Yeah.
So. And what attributes would you say make an exceptional leader?
The ability to listen to your team, the ability to adapt, to ensure that you're meeting your team's needs, as well as your organisations. I think that for me is probably the biggest thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good. Okay, and what does sustainability mean to you?
Sustainability to me is a mindset. It's something that we have to instill into everybody if we are going to meet government targets of net zero, if we're going to save the planet, really.
Yes.
And it's a mindset. It's not renewable energy, it's not recycling, it's everything. And it's about really primary schools all the way through secondary, all the way through university should be teaching sustainability, because the future generations are the ones that are going to be making the important decisions that change the direction in which we're going into in climate. And sustainability has more meanings in terms of being able to sustain working practices and things like that. But I think as something that needs to be intrinsic within everybody, that's what I'd like to see. So to me, it needs to be almost a part of everybody's life.
Yeah, I'm in complete agreement with you. I think that was very well put. And final question, tell us an inspiring or motivational phrase.
I think it would be yourself and keep going.
Yeah.
I think
nice.
that to me is, be who you are and reach for, I don't want to say dreams because that would be a bit cheesy.
Yeah, I thought we were going to say the stars. I was like, oh my gosh.
but strive for your goals.
Yeah.
You can do it. You can do it. So that's what I'd probably say.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Glenn.
No
You have
problem.
been an absolute pleasure. Really, honestly do appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. Cheers.